They forgot my graduation, stole my money, and left me sick and alone while they flew first class to LA with my credit card. I was just a safety net to them. Until I became their landlord. Hi, I'm Evelyn. And this is the story of how I turned betrayal into power. Have you ever realized your family saw you more as a resource than a person? Have you ever had to fight for your dignity against the very people who raised you? Because I did. And it all started with a hospital bed, and ended with them paying me rent. Drop a comment if you've ever had to cut ties to protect your peace. I'd love to hear your story. Let's rewind the tape, because the storm didn't start with a fight. It started with silence. The fever hit like a freight train, sudden, brutal, and unrelenting. My skin felt like it was on fire, my stomach twisted in violent knots, and every attempt to sit upright left the room spinning like a roulette wheel. I reached for my phone, fingertips trembling, and fired off a text to my mom. I think I have food poisoning. I need to go to the hospital. No response. I waited, staring at the glowing screen, the seconds dragging like hours. I dialed instead. Ringing, voicemail. Again. Nothing. Through the paper-thin walls of my apartment, I could hear the clinking of coffee cups and excited chatter. My mother's voice floated in, animated and sharp, followed by my sister Violet's unmistakable laugh. Dragging myself up, one hand braced against the wall, I stumbled toward the living room. The world spun. My vision blurred. But there they were. Sharon adjusting her travel scarf in the mirror like she was off to a gala, and Violet lounging on the couch, scrolling her phone with her signature smirk. "Mom," I croaked. She glanced at me, barely. "Honey, you look awful," she said, grabbing her lipstick from the entryway table. "I feel awful. I think I need to go to the ER," Sharon sighed. "You're overreacting. Rest, drink some water." Violet scoffed. "Take a Tums. We're leaving soon." I leaned against the doorframe, barely able to hold myself up. "You're still going?" Sharon didn't look up from the mirror. "Of course. The hotel's non-refundable." I looked from her to Violet, whose only response was a shrug. My dad, Brent, stood by the door, silent, checking his watch. "So, you're leaving me here? Alone? Sick?" Brent didn't meet my eyes. Sharon chuckled softly. "You're a grown woman, Evelyn. You'll survive." I didn't scream, didn't beg. Just stood there, feeling something inside me crack. They picked up their suitcases, Louis Vuitton, a matched set I had unknowingly paid for, and walked out. "Don't call us. We'll be busy," Violet said with a wink as the door clicked shut behind them. The silence that followed was deafening. I slumped onto the couch, every joint screaming. On some cruel autopilot, I opened my banking app. $0. I blinked. Refreshed. Nothing changed. Scroll, Beverly Hills Hotel, $1,289. First-class flights, $500. Restaurant charges, shopping sprees, VIP tours, all mine. Or, more accurately, all mine no longer. Hands trembling, I dialed again. Mom, voicemail. Dad, voicemail. I hesitated over Violet, but before I could tap her name, a message popped up. "Violet, relax. It's just a few charges. We'll pay you back." "A few charges?" I texted back. "Me. You maxed out my card." "That was my rent money." No response. Then, Violet. "OMG, you're so dramatic. It's not like we robbed you. Chill." I was done chilling. I called Sharon. She answered cheerfully. "Sweetheart, you took my money." A beat. Then, "Don't be ridiculous. Maybe the bank messed up." I checked. "Beverly Hills, the flights. It's all on me." She sighed. "We figured it was fine since you weren't using it." "You left me." Another light laugh. "Don't be so dramatic." That word. Dramatic. As if I were auditioning for pain, not drowning in it. No apology. No guilt. Just entitlement wrapped in lipstick and designer perfume. I hung up before I could scream. My chest heaved, but it wasn't from sickness anymore. It was clarity. I opened the banking app, locked my cards, canceled every auto payment, set fraud alerts, burned the bridge. They were never going to change. But I could. The next morning, the sky matched my mood. Gray. Heavy. I sat in silence, waiting. At exactly 10:07 a.m., my phone rang. Sharon. I let it ring twice, then picked up. Sweetheart. She began, syrupy. How are you feeling? Let's not do this, I said. Why is my account maxed out? That can't be right. Don't play dumb. I traced every charge. More silence. Then, why are you making this a fight? My voice didn't rise. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a pattern. Flashbacks hit like shrapnel. Me at 16, savings gone for family emergencies. Me at 19, paying off Violet's travel semester. Me at 23, still sending money home while Violet job hopped and shopped. You didn't lose your card, I said. You used mine. Watch your tone. No, you don't get to play the victim. Click. I didn't shake, didn't cry. I felt power humming in my fingertips. I was done funding their vacations, done being their bank. They had just created a new version of me, and she wasn't scared of them anymore. If I had thought silence was the worst part of betrayal, I hadn't yet seen what a digital dagger looked like. It was a Tuesday morning, and for once, I was feeling stable. The fever had broken, the betrayal had burned itself into clarity, and I had started to draw lines in permanent ink. I walked into the office building like nothing was wrong. Makeup on, blazer sharp, coffee in hand. But something in the air felt off, like the kind of stillness right before a tornado touches down. Evelyn, a voice called behind me. It was Mr. Thorne, my boss. He never addressed people by first name unless it was serious. Can you step into my office? Sure, I replied, keeping my voice even. I followed him down the glass corridor, past the glass-eyed stares of coworkers who looked too interested in pretending they weren't interested. Something had happened. He gestured toward the chair across from his desk and turned his monitor toward me. My blood went cold. Did you send this? He asked. It was an email from my company address. Subject: Don't waste my time. Body: I don't have time for your nonsense. Find someone else to handle this. I stared at the screen. It was signed E. Keene. My pulse thundered in my ears. I didn't write this, I said. I swear. This isn't even my writing style. Mr. Thorne studied me. It came from your account. IT flagged it due to tone and because it was sent at 3:27 a.m. from an out-of-state IP address. My stomach dropped. Los Angeles? He blinked. Yes. Violet. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug crescents into my palms. I can prove it wasn't me. Then I strongly suggest you do. His voice was stern but not accusatory. Because right now your job's hanging by a thread. I left his office on shaky legs, my coffee now bitter in my mouth. Back at my desk, I slammed open my laptop and scrolled through my email logs. It didn't take long. There it was. My credentials used on a foreign network. Timestamp. Geolocation. Beverly Hills. I picked up my phone and called her. She picked up on the second ring. Miss me already? Violet's voice was syrupy sweet. What the hell did you do? A pause, then a low chuckle. You're gonna have to be more specific, little sis. You hacked my email. You tried to sabotage my job. I didn't try, she said. I did. You're insane. No, she said calmly. You're self-righteous. You always think you're above us. Always the responsible one. Always judging. You're projecting. You're predictable, she snapped. You'll run to mommy, cry to HR, but none of it will matter. No one cares, Evie. You're not special. Have you ever realized the people who should have protected you were actively trying to erase you? That moment when betrayal doesn't scream, it whispers through sabotage. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, leave a comment number 7 below. I want to hear your truth. Now, let's see how I started fighting back. That's when it clicked. She didn't just want to hurt me, she wanted to erase me. I hung up. My hands trembled as I gathered every piece of evidence: IP logs, screenshots, login history. I emailed it all to Ronan, my only real ally at work. He responded within minutes. "Meet me at conference room B. I'm with you." We sat side by side as I presented everything to HR. Ms. Caldwell, the rep, looked like she'd stepped out of a policy manual. Straight-backed, emotionally neutral, but her eyes gave her away. She was watching me closely. "I didn't send that email," I said again, "but I know who did." She examined the logs, her brow furrowing. "You're accusing your sister?" "I'm stating facts. She was in possession of my devices. She had access to my login, and she's admitted it. Verbally." "Did you record that?" "No," I said, jaw tightening. "But I have the motive, timeline, and digital proof." She nodded slowly. "We'll investigate. Until then, your position remains unchanged." Outside the conference room, Ronan exhaled. "You good?" "No," I said, "but I will be." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how far Violet would go just to burn my life down. Then I remembered. She was always willing to take what wasn't hers. But this time, I wasn't going to let her. I sat up, opened my laptop again, and typed, "To Violet Keene. Subject: Legal Notification Body. If you do not formally retract and undo the email damage within 24 hours, I will pursue charges for digital fraud and identity theft. This is not a threat, it's a promise." I hit send. The next morning, my inbox had one new message from Violet Keene. Subject: Chill body. "God, Evelyn. Fine, I'll fix it. You're no fun." I didn't smile, didn't breathe a sigh of relief. I just stared at the words like they meant nothing. Because they did. She had admitted guilt again. Carelessly, sloppily. And that was her fatal flaw. I forwarded the message to HR, attached the chain. Let the game begin. They were waiting at my door. I'd barely made it home from work, key halfway to the lock, when I saw them. Sharon in a wool coat she didn't need for the weather, clutching her bag like a widow in mourning. Brent, stiff as ever, eyes shifting anywhere but toward mine. And Violet, leaning against the wall with that smug little smirk that used to get her out of everything. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice low, firm. Sharon's face twisted into something between pity and accusation. "We need to talk, sweetheart." "No," I said immediately. "You need to leave." "Oh, come on," Violet groaned, rolling her eyes. "Don't be so childish. You're blowing everything out of proportion." "Am I?" I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and before they could follow, I turned and blocked the entryway with my body. Because from where I'm standing, I think I've been pretty damn patient. Brent finally spoke. "Evelyn, this is still your family." I laughed. A short, bitter bark. "Number. This is a group of people who stole from me, lied to me, and tried to ruin my career. Family doesn't do that." Sharon stepped forward. "We're desperate. Violet's in trouble. And we need money to get back from LA. "That sounds like a you problem." Her face hardened. "Don't be selfish. After everything we've done for you." "You mean, after everything I've done for you?" I snapped. "Paid your bills? Covered Violet's emergencies? Funded your vacations? You drained me dry." Violet straightened. "We raised you." I tilted my head. "Did you? Or did I just grow up despite you?" The silence that followed was thick, electric. I could feel Violet coiling beside Sharon like a snake about to strike. And then she lunged forward, grabbing my arm with nails like claws. "You think you can cut us off?" she hissed. I yanked my arm free, pulled out my phone, and dialed. 911, what's your emergency? My family is trespassing. They're refusing to leave and just got physical with me. I need officers sent to my apartment now. The change was immediate. Brent stepped back first. "Let's go," he muttered. Sharon's expression faltered. "You wouldn't. You can't call the police on your own mother." I met her eyes, cold and unwavering. "Watch me." The three of them stood there for a second too long. Then, like watching dominoes fall in reverse, they unraveled. Brent walked off first. Sharon followed, her back straight but her hands shaking. Violet lingered, jaw clenched, eyes burning holes into my skull. "This isn't over," she whispered. "Get off my property," I replied. I shut the door before she could say another word. Locked it. Bolted it. Then slumped against it as my knees nearly gave out. My hands shook. Not from fear, but adrenaline. My body knew this was war, even if part of me still clung to the ghost of a family that no longer existed. A few hours later, I checked my phone again. 37 missed calls. A dozen voicemails. I ignored them all. Then the text came. "Violet, you just made the biggest mistake of your life." I stared at it for a long minute before deleting the thread entirely. As I sat in that chair, still gripping the silence like armor, my mind drifted. I thought about the time I was 19 and wired my entire paycheck to Sharon because the gas was about to be cut off. I had eaten ramen for weeks while Violet posted Instagram stories from Paris. I thought about being 23, working overtime to cover their mortgage, only to overhear Sharon brag to a friend about her brilliant financial planning. I remembered telling myself it was love. It wasn't. It was survival. In reverse. That's what made me dial 911 with zero hesitation, because I had finally learned that loyalty without boundaries isn't love, it's self-destruction. A few moments after they left, I stood in the hallway, staring at the door like it might open again. But it didn't. The silence was complete now, the kind that used to terrify me. But tonight, it comforted me. I turned off the lights, and the city outside glowed through the window. Cool, distant, and mine. The echo of their footsteps had faded, but the imprint of that moment was permanent. I poured myself a drink. Neat. The glass clinked against the marble counter. I let the warmth hit my chest and welcomed it. The truth was, I had spent most of my life waiting to be seen, to be valued, to be chosen by people who saw me as a utility, not a person. But tonight, I chose me. And that felt like the beginning of something I didn't have a name for yet, but I knew it was mine to define. I didn't fire the first public shot, but I didn't hesitate to answer it. I woke up to over 100 notifications. My phone buzzed like it was caught in a seizure. At first, I thought maybe something at work had gone wrong. Another email? A data breach? Number. It was far more personal. My mother had taken to Facebook a photo of us when I was 10, me with a missing front tooth, Sharon holding me like a prize she hadn't pawned yet. The caption read, "It breaks my heart to see how money can turn a daughter against her family. Please pray for us, we tried our best." I didn't know what made me angrier, the post or the comments under it. "Aunt Rachel, I had no idea you were going through this, Sharon. Stay strong." Someone from church. "She was always ungrateful. You raised her too soft." Distant cousin. "This generation has no respect. So sorry, Auntie." A familiar rage settled into my chest like old smoke. Because this wasn't the first time she'd turned a crowd against me. When I was 15, I told a teacher Sharon had forgotten to sign a permission slip for a school trip. I got pulled from the trip and grounded for embarrassing the family. Sharon spun a tale about me being irresponsible and a liar. Every PTA mom gave me that same look for months, pity mixed with disdain. I had learned early that my mother's greatest strength was playing the martyr. Her favorite game was rewriting history. I sat in silence for maybe 3 minutes. Then I stood up, made coffee, opened my laptop. Got to work. I wasn't going to let them control the story. But even as I opened my banking app and folder of saved screenshots, I hesitated. Was I really doing this? Going public meant opening myself to judgment, ridicule, exposure. But then I remembered lying in bed, feverish and alone, while they laughed over brunch and maxed out my card. That memory hardened me like ice in the bloodstream. By 10 a.m., I had the screenshots ready, my banking app showing a zero balance the day they left. The statement with Beverly Hills Hotel, $1,289, the fine dining charges, the VIP tour, the IP logs from the sabotaged email, the message from Violet. Fine, I'll fix it. I uploaded them to a clean, concise post and wrote, I never wanted to bring this drama online, but my family left me sick and alone while they used my money for a luxury vacation. Then they tried to sabotage my job. I have receipts for everything. If they want to play this publicly, fine. Here's the truth. It exploded. At first, it was just quiet support. College friends, co-workers, a couple of distant cousins messaging, I believe you. Then came the shares. Dozens, then hundreds. Then screenshots appeared on Reddit, Twitter, private Facebook groups. My inbox lit up with strangers saying, this sounds exactly like my mother, or, my sister pulled the same thing. Stay strong. And I watched it happen in real time. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, scrolling as the post gained traction. Every refresh brought new comments, some furious, some heartbreaking. A Trauma Kid 84. I cried reading this. It's like my mom wrote her post too. In no context, Violet. The audacity to post a guilt trip while spending someone else's money? Wild. Cut the cord. This isn't drama, this is liberation. But more importantly, people started questioning Sharon. Her carefully curated narrative cracked. The comment section turned on her. Commenter 1. Wait. She drained your bank account and then posted a sob story? Commenter 2. This is why blood is thicker than water is a misquote. Commenter 3. Can we normalize going no contact with toxic parents, please? I thought it would make me feel vindicated, but all I felt was tired. Then came the Instagram blow. Violet posted a story. Not many people know this, but Evelyn has always been manipulative. We covered for her growing up. She's selfish and twisted the truth. Sad. Sad. I didn't respond immediately. I let it sit, let the internet chew on it, and it did. Screenshots of her story were posted next to my banking app. Someone found Violet's old travel blog where she wrote about living off generous family support. The timelines didn't match. The lies unraveled faster than she could delete them. Then a direct message came in, from my cousin Eliza. Eliza. We're all on your side. Let me know if you want me to speak up. I messaged back. Not yet. Let them bury themselves. And they did. The next day, Sharon's post was gone. Violet's account set to private. Brent, who hadn't said a word during any of this, finally texted me. Brent. This has gone too far. Your mother collapsed this morning. She's in the hospital. I stared at the message. Collapsed? From what? Public accountability? Still, something in me stirred. Not concerned, not guilt. Something colder. Suspicion. I called the hospital. The hospital smelled like lemon disinfectant and denial. I walked past pale green walls and nurses who barely looked up, scanning clipboards and tapping on tablets. The ER desk was manned by a woman with a chignon bun and a tone that said she had seen everything twice. "Patient name?" she asked without looking at me. "Sharon Keene." She typed with 2 fingers, paused, then looked up. "Mild dehydration. No cardiac concerns. She'll be discharged this afternoon." That was it? I nodded, muttered a thank you, and walked away. My steps felt both too heavy and too fast. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me like white noise confirmation. I had been right. Again. When I reached Sharon's room, the door was open. She was lying in bed, IV drip attached, hair artfully tousled, makeup delicately smudged to hint at fragility. Violet sat beside her, legs crossed, arms folded, her phone glowing in her palm. The moment she saw me, she rolled her eyes. "Oh, look who showed up." Sharon opened her eyes like she'd been rehearsing the motion. "Sweetheart," she rasped, "you did this to me." I blinked. "Number, you did this to yourself." She tried to sit up, a hand pressed delicately to her chest. The stress. The shame. I couldn't breathe. I stepped into the room and let the door swing slowly closed behind me. "You weren't having a heart attack," I said flatly. "You were dehydrated. That's what the nurse told me. You'll be out in a few hours." She looked wounded, as if the truth had physically struck her. Violet shot up from her chair. "Why are you even here?" she hissed. "I wanted to see for myself," I replied. "To confirm that this wasn't another performance." Sharon's lower lip quivered. "We're your family, Evelyn. Even after all this, we're still here." "No," I said, voice steel. "You're still lying." There was a pause, the kind that stretched like thread about to snap. "You think this is easy for us?" Violet snarled. "Do you know what people are saying? You've humiliated us." I smiled. It wasn't kind. "Good. Then maybe next time you'll think before stealing from someone and trying to ruin their life." Violet stepped forward, close enough that I could see the shimmer of her highlighter. "You think you're so righteous, so above it all. But you're just bitter." I leaned closer. "And you're just predictable." She flinched. I turned to Sharon, who had retreated into silence. "I'm done," I said. "You're not my responsibility anymore. I'm not your bank, your punching bag, or your scapegoat. Whatever role I used to play in this twisted little theater, you can find a new lead." I turned to leave, but before I could take 2 steps, Violet grabbed my wrist. "You can't just cut us off," she snapped. I looked her dead in the eye. "Watch me." I yanked my arm free and walked out. The door didn't slam. I didn't run. I just walked. On the way out, I paused in the parking lot, leaning against the cold steel of my car. The wind whipped around me, but it wasn't enough to scatter the thoughts already tearing through my mind. I remembered the last time Sharon ended up in a hospital. Nothing serious, just a panic episode after a fundraiser fell through. I was 19, pulled out of class, told she might not make it. I ran 4 miles to get there because I couldn't afford the bus fare that week. When I arrived, she was sipping apple juice and chatting with the nurse about television. And yet, she cried when I asked why she hadn't told me it wasn't serious. "You worry too much," she had said. No, I didn't. I worried the exact amount she demanded, and then some. The pattern was always the same: drama, pity, guilt. Her power wasn't in anger, it was in silence, performance, and the heavy weight of obligation she draped over me like a wool coat I never asked to wear. I sat in my car, staring at the steering wheel. Why had I come to the hospital at all? Was I still looking for proof? Closure? A reason to care? The silence didn't answer. Back at home, I didn't turn on the lights. The twilight spilled through the windows, soft and cold. I stood in the kitchen, one hand on the counter, the other gripping a glass of water. Everything was quiet, but not empty. It felt intentional, like space I had finally reclaimed. A part of me wondered if I should have said more, if I should have stayed. If there was some hidden humanity buried beneath their bitterness, waiting to be unearthed. But I knew better. They didn't want healing. They wanted control. And I wasn't offering that anymore. When the email from Jared came, I almost laughed. It felt too perfect, too precise. I read the line. Foreclosure proceedings have started on the Keene residence. You have right of first refusal as next of kin on title. The house. For years they held it like a trophy above my head. This will never be yours. You don't know how to handle real responsibility. We'll make sure it stays in the family, the right way. Well, I was still family. And now, I had a choice. Have you ever stood on the edge of a decision that could change everything, not just for revenge, but to reclaim your voice? That moment when silence becomes power. If you've ever had to choose between peace or pleasing others, drop a comment number 9 below. Let's find out what I chose. The cursor blinked back at me as I hovered over the reply button. Let's see how they like living with consequences. It was surprisingly quiet the day I bought their house. No dramatic music, no confrontation, no phone calls filled with begging or fury. Just the hum of fluorescent lights in Jared Knox's office, the soft click of a pen against contract paper, and my signature at the bottom of a deed I was never supposed to touch. Congratulations, Jared said, sliding the papers back into a folder. It's yours. I nodded, lips pressed together. It felt less like a victory and more like a reclaiming. Like putting my hands on something that had always been mine, even if they pretended otherwise. The Keene residence was no longer the Keene residence. It was mine now. The house was older than it looked, a colonial 2-story with peeling white paint and ivy that grew a little too wild. It sat on the edge of a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood that prided itself on staying quiet. I stood at the curb for a long moment, key in hand, before walking up the path. The door creaked. Of course it did. The entryway smelled like dust and lemon-scented cleaner. Someone had tried to make it presentable for the auction photos, but it still felt like a stage after a bad play had closed. Props abandoned, energy soured. In the living room, I found the framed family photo still on the wall. Sharon's smile tight, Brent's eyes glazed, Violet mid-blink and looking annoyed. I took it down. Not angrily. Just, finally. I packed up what was left. Old blankets, silverware, a few books I'd left behind years ago. Nothing sentimental. Nothing I hadn't already outgrown. That night I slept in my own apartment, but I left a spare key under a flower pot on the porch. A silent message. I didn't need to slam the door anymore. It was already shut. Standing in the hallway of the old house, I ran my fingers along the dent in the wall just outside the kitchen. I hadn't seen it in years, but I still remembered how it got there. Violet and I were fighting over a remote control. She shoved me. I tripped. My elbow went through the drywall. Brent patched it that same night, but the texture never matched. That dent had been there for 15 years, and they never fixed it properly. Like most things in this house, it was easier to paint over than to repair. I walked slowly into what used to be my bedroom. The wallpaper had changed, but not the creak in the floorboard by the window. The memory came back in shards. Teenage me, curled in that corner with earbuds in, pretending not to hear Sharon yelling at Brent. Pretending not to cry. This place wasn't a home. It was a museum of tolerated damage, and now I owned every inch of it. 2 weeks later, I got the notification. Tenant application submitted. Brent and Sharon Keene. I stared at the screen, heart a still pond. Of course they didn't call. Of course they didn't ask. They went through the property manager like strangers. I sat for almost an hour before responding. I reread their names at least 20 times. Brent and Sharon Keene. Not even a note. Just a form. Just a need. I imagined them filling it out from a public library, whispering over the keyboard, debating whether to include their real income. They still hadn't called. And somehow, that made my decision easier. I pulled up the online form, hovered over the Approve button. Then I remembered Sharon, hands on her hips, telling me at 17, "This house isn't yours, Evelyn. Don't get comfortable." I clicked Approve, then typed 3 words. Lease approved. Welcome home. And underneath, just 2 letters. EK. No fanfare. No ceremony. Just justice. Quiet, clean, final. The next day, I passed the keys to the property manager without ceremony. "She'll know what to do," I said. She. Not me. Not anymore. And when I boarded my flight to Rome, I didn't look back. Not to the airport. Not to the city. Not to the house I now technically owned. I closed my eyes and let the engine drown out the past. Rome welcomed me with sun-split stone streets and laughter in languages I didn't need to understand. I didn't plan. I didn't explain. I just existed. One cafe at a time. One quiet breath at a time. I wasn't rebuilding. I was becoming. I reclaimed everything they once used to bury me, and now I live free, unapologetic, and untethered. Peace didn't come from forgiveness. It came from cutting off the rot at its roots. I learned that kindness is not a currency for exploitation, and silence is not weakness. Those who sow harm under the disguise of family will one day have to live with the consequences, sometimes in the form of a monthly rent bill with your initials on it. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to the very people who were supposed to protect you? If my story touched something inside you, drop a comment or share your own journey. You are not alone in the fight to reclaim your life. And if you've ever wondered, can I truly be happy after cutting off toxic blood ties? The next video is for you.